some interesting facts about St. Kateri.
A Ray of Hope does great work.
Yeah, they do, yeah. Well, joining us now on the set is Brother Paul Fesefeldt, who is working in the chaplaincy team of the Capuchin Mobile Ministry here in the Boston area. Thank you so much for being with us, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe if we could start up talking about the Capuchin Franciscans of the province of St. Mary. Maybe tell us a little bit about your group.
Well, we are in the New York, New England province in the United States. So there's 6 Capuchin provinces in the United States. And we were one of the early groups to come over. We were one province through the Midwest and the Northeast. And then as we got bigger, it split into 2 provinces, St. Joseph province, which is now in the Midwest, and us in the Northeast. And that happened in '52, although we came over here much earlier than that, you know, around the turn of the century. And so now we have the 2 provinces serving the 2 areas, and then other provinces have come and split. There was a Pittsburgh province would then split with Denver, and there's a California province as well. So
spread out across the...
Yeah.
And you do a mobile ministry. What type of work does the mobile ministry do?
Well, the mobile ministry is a street outreach van with the focus on spiritual care and the care of the individual, as opposed to just bringing them food, which a lot of groups do, which is a good ministry to do. But we realize that, you know, in most major cities, it's not difficult for people to get food. There's programs all over the place. There's church groups that do things and go out on weekends and things. But what people don't get is any sort of spiritual care, any sort of checking in on how they're doing, what they're struggling with, if they need any prayers, if they need anything. So our ministry is really focused on kind of a spiritual triage, to kind of go back to Pope Francis's idea of like a field hospital, a spiritual field hospital. So we use the sandwiches and the coffee that we have in the van, kind of like you would use coffee and cake at a social hour at church, a way to stop in and say, hi, how you doing, like a cup of coffee. But that's not the focus. The focus isn't the food. The focus is the people and building relationships and giving them spiritual care and praying for their needs.
Talk about the beginnings of it, brother. How did you see the need out there and sort of develop? How did it all come together?
Well, I myself have been working with homeless even before I joined the Capuchins for over 20 years. So, you know, I always knew the need was out there. And I think, you know, the friars also have always seen the need, because friars typically are found in parishes that are kind of like marginalized parishes, poor areas. But a number of years ago now, I can't remember the exact year, but someone donated an actual food truck to the Denver province of Franciscans, you know, like you see when you go to a ball game or something.
Yeah.
And so they painted it up with Capuchin saints and started going out, and it was a big hit. So a number of years ago, four years ago, maybe 5 years ago, my provincial asked me to start one for our province. So I said, okay. So I came back up to Boston, where I had done some work with the homeless, and really took a few months just to kind of talk to people. Like, I didn't just want to start something without finding out, like, what's the need? What's going on in Boston? So I talked to service providers like Pine Street Inn, the City of Boston, St. Francis House. I talked to people on the streets themselves that I have known, people that used to be on the streets, church-based providers, and said, what's really needed out there? And what came kind of to the surface was spiritual care. Like, you don't need more food. Yeah. But in order to get spiritual care, people on the street have to find a church when it's open and go there. And that can be daunting for many different reasons. So to actually go where they are and to just say, hi, how you doing? We're here if you want to talk. You know, they don't have to seek us out. They know we're going to be there. So that seemed to be the real need, to kind of provide people some sort of connection, and really to remind them that they're children of God and they have dignity and worth, which is something it's easy to forget when you're on the street.
Do you bring in lay volunteers to your ministry as well?
We do. Over the years now, we've been doing this for 3 years, and we built up quite a base. So when we first started, we did all the sandwiches and things in our kitchen. Now we have, through parish groups, student groups, and other groups, we never make the sandwiches. So the parish groups do this, and they bring them to us, and we load them up in our little refrigerator in the van. But then we slowly started going to parishes, giving talks. The local pastor at our collaborative, where we live in JP, Father Carlos Flor, was kind enough to put a blurb in his bulletin, and then ran it for a month, and we got a lot of volunteers that way. Then Father Cardinal Sean, who's Capuchin, came out and blessed the van, and so that got us some publicity at the pilot. We got some volunteers from that. So now we have probably over 150 volunteers that come out maybe once a month, maybe more if they're retired or they're student, they have more time. But we very often don't have to worry about, are we going to have enough lay volunteers? So we usually have 2 friars and at least 2 lay volunteers. Lay volunteers focus on kind of like being a barista. They do the coffee, they do the sandwiches, say hi. And then the brothers interact with the people, talk to them, pray with them, see how they're doing, things like that.
Maybe could you talk about some of the encounters, brothers, of meeting some of the people on the street, maybe what they want to talk about, or maybe a special encounter that you've had in your ministry?
Sure. Well, I mean, there's every encounter possible. Some people don't really know who we are, and they just, what do you have? Can I get this? Other people slowly get to know who we are. I remember there was one guy who, when they first met us, didn't really have anything to do with us, didn't really talk to us. And now he's one of the first people to come up at the stop and say, hey, brother, how you doing? So you kind of build this relationship. Because in a sense, we're driving our van like into their dining room, into their living room. This is where they live. So it's very imposing. So you don't want to, just kind of push your agenda down their throats. You want to meet them. So, but we've had impromptu confessions when we had priest friars with us. We've had people, ask us to hold hands often and pray with them. We've had, hugging and crying. We've had the gamut of experiences. And of course, we also try to get people's names who are on the van, and whether they have a specific intention or not, we make a list of those names and leave it in a book in our chapel, and we pray the names every day in our chapel.
That's great.
So I know our viewers are going to want to get involved. How can they get involved as donors and volunteers?
Well, we have our Capuchin website, which is just capuchin.org, and as soon as you go there, you'll see Capuchin Mobile Ministries. You click on that, it has everything, phone numbers, emails, even has a nice little 6-minute video about what the ministry is about.
That's great. Well, thank you, brother, for being here and sharing your ministry with us and all our viewers.
Thank you for having me.